Hello everyone, it's Sylvia from Fairlight Tarot. Welcome to my channel. Now today this is going to be a bit of an experiment because I have completely changed my setup. I've got a couple more lights and I bought a gooseneck to use for my for the recording. And I have no idea if this is going to work. I hope that basically now my phone, which is recording, is really on top of this setup, so I hope that it's not gonna crack and fall you know, whilst I'm in the middle of talking. That's gonna be fun. Today I'm going to do a VR. I saw this video the other day on Annette's channel, Annette from a project Refine Life, and it's she was basically showing her most versatile decks. And since I use that word a lot when I describe some of my decks, especially when it comes to specific oracle decks, I really wanted to join in with a VR. So these are my most versatile decks. So I wanted to start with these two oracles because these two have been created by the same team. One of the so if you look at the this one, for example, the Modern Nirvana Oracle, here it gives you the names of all the creators and the illustrator. I think I know Jennifer Sudini the most because I also follow her Instagram account, but I know that it's a very creative team behind the scenes that have been bringing these two oracles to life. Now, the first one that was released was the Amenity Oracle, and you may know it or not. It's a very beautiful deck. What I really like about this deck is that it's got a very nice setup. When it comes to product value, you actually really can tell how much has gone into the creation of this deck. So it's a wraparound magnetic box, and it's got a really beautiful book, as you can see. You know, full color with lots and lots of pages for each and every card. So it's actually really, really interesting. This deck is very versatile to me because when it comes to the cards, which I'm going to show you in a second, as you can see, it's got another box inside the box. So when it comes to the cards, we can actually see there's a sentence at the bottom of each card, and it's always an affirmation. So, for example, in this case, honor animals with reverence. I can be trusted. I am accepting. I converse with awareness, and so on and so forth. I really found this deck to be very versatile in the sense that I now really like to use it as a send-off message to a reading. In particular, when we're talking about the Wheel of the Year readings, or maybe the month ahead or the week ahead reading. Because whenever we look at those type of readings, there's always a lot of information that needs to be processed. And sometimes that might mean that we don't necessarily stay with the awareness of the reading, but we already think ahead. So if it's a week ahead reading, we're already kind of trying to see ourselves into next week, and we're trying to see what the cards could mean, what a specific card could mean in the situation. But I think that whenever we give a reading or we receive a reading, we also have to be to stay in the moment for a while and realize that we have been communicating with the cards. We've been channeling this kind of energy, whether it's the practitioner energy that has been channeled in the reading or it's the person requesting the reading. And I think that this deck is very, very good for that, because by giving you an affirmation, for example, I speak with good intent, it really brings you back just for a second to the magic that you have just witnessed. Whether, as I said, whether it's myself giving a reading or the person I'm giving a reading to, it's always really, really beautiful to just take a moment and express the gratitude and the feelings that you may have for the reading itself. So this is a very, very beautiful deck for this type of, you know, bringing back awareness. But also I wanted to show at the same time, because it's the same team of creators, the Modern Nirvana Oracle. This is slightly more recent. I think it's been published towards the end of last year. It's of the same production values, so the magnetic wraparound deck is a really beautiful book, slightly smaller, but still, as you can see, full color pages and quite a fair bit of description when it comes to each and every card. What I do like is that it's got a bit of a mantra for every card, which, you know, it continues with the tradition of staying in the moment of the reading. So if we have a look at the cards, these decks have a very similar artwork, as you can imagine, because they have been created by the same team. But what distinguishes it is the keywords. So in this case, we find really, really intuitive and evocative keywords, and the artwork is just spectacular. And this is also one of my most versatile decks, because I actually use it a lot in combination with readings as well, but not just as a send-off message after a reading. I actually use this in the most traditional way in which I use an oracle, therefore, you know, in the center with a tarot deck on the sides. And this is thanks to the fact that these keywords are actually very, very good as a focus between two tarot cards. As you can see, it's got sigils as well. So if you're familiar with sigils, whenever we incorporate sigils in a reading, it makes it even more important, let's say, because it does express an intention. I really love some of these cards, are very poignant, they're full of meaning, and I really do appreciate the artwork. It's just something that it taps on intuition, but it also shows you how beautiful, you know, the connection between these cards is. So one of the cards that I appreciate the most is this one. So it says just boat. So as a keyword, it might not necessarily be evocative, but if you look at the card, I find that I don't necessarily need to go back to the guidebook, because I can see that it's raining. I don't know if it shows on camera, but I can see that it's raining. I can see that there is an eclipse and there's clouds there, and you know, the waters are really choppy, but you're still standing on this boat. So it's an exhortation of not letting go, of, you know, be resilient and knowing that sooner or later even this cloud or this eclipse will pass. And there's many other cards that are that deep, and that, you know, they're really conducive to a very emotional kind of reading as well. Obviously, you need to create that special kind of atmosphere whenever you use this deck. I find that in some cases I need to take my time when I use it, because it is that deep. But really beautiful. I'm very, very grateful to have this deck. Another deck that I consider really versatile is the Amethyst Oracle by Jessica Bott. If you're not familiar with the creator, Jessica Bott is the creator of another oracle deck, I think it's called Phenomena, and also a tarot deck, which I think it's called the Botanical deck from Jessica Bott. I only have this oracle deck, unfortunately. I would love to have the Botanical deck, so the tarot deck as well. But I think it's, unfortunately, I think it's out of print. But this deck is incredibly perceptive as well. Perspective was the first card. So I really like the fact that the artwork is very simple. It's almost minimal, although you know, it does have a lot of elements. For example, It also has one of my favorite cards ever, because this is the Northern Lights, and the keyword for this card is silence. And I absolutely adore this card because I have seen the Northern Lights. If you watch my channel, you'll know how much I love travel. And one of the most beautiful experiences ever in my traveling years has been seeing the Northern Lights in Iceland and above the Arctic Circle in Finnmark, so between Norway and Finland. And I really like the fact that there is very simple images like this one, for example. It's a snowman and it says winter. But it's because of the artwork being this simple, because of the keywords being so straightforward, this deck is very easy to pair up with lots and lots of tarot decks in my collection. So it's always very straight to the point, very specific messages that are conveyed by this deck. And I really like that I can use it in many ways. In some cases I use the traditional way as a focus between two tarot cards. Some other times I can use it as a follow-up message or a close-up or wrap-up message after a more complex type of reading. But in other cases I can actually use it by itself, because it does have that kind of depth that you can really tap into. And I also have to say, I also really enjoy the cardstock. It's a perfect size for me. It's a good deck, not a 30 cards deck. So, and it's the kind of matte that I really like, because it doesn't catch the light. So this deck is, it's one of the workhorses decks, Oracle decks, when it comes to my collection, because it's one of those decks that you can use a lot. And I actually use it a lot. Another deck that I absolutely love and adore is the Soul Trees Ascension deck. So this deck is absolutely gorgeous. It's one of my favorite decks when it comes to the combination of artwork and color palette. This deck has absolutely no rivals in my entire collection, not just when it comes to Oracle decks, but also when it comes to tarot decks. It's just a kind of artwork that I adore. It's got a lot of watercolor, but the color palette especially is my favorite. These kind of blue tones and purple, all the shades of blue and teal green. This is just really beautiful for me to just look at the cards. And I have to say, I really enjoy the artwork as well. The way in which the branches are expressed in this artwork is really beautiful. And I also really enjoy the keywords. I actually have to say that in many cases this deck has blown my mind when it comes to the keyword, especially when I do reading for myself. I have to say, this is one of the decks that I use, the Oracle decks that I use the most whenever it's a very personal kind of reading, because the keywords are very deep. And it's not exactly a hug deck, I wouldn't call it that, but it's a very powerful one. It's a very touching, very emotional kind of deck, that it does establish that kind of bridge between what you're reading and what you're seeking as a message into your reading, and the emotions that is actually giving you the opportunity to express by focusing on the artwork and the keywords. It's a chunky deck, as you can tell. It's not a small one, and it does also have a nice guidebook. Now, it is one of my most versatile one because of the color. It does pair well with a lot of my tarot decks. And I find that it's just really good. It's got that kind of conclusive power that you need whenever you're seeking a bit of a final message to send someone off, even including myself after a reading. So this is the Soul Trees Ascension deck. I know that there's a few decks by the same creator, Alison Williams. This is the Ascension deck. I don't know whether this is still in print, this particular version of her oracles. It is a very beautiful one, so if you do have the opportunity to get this deck, I highly recommend it. You know, when I was thinking about what decks are most versatile in my collection, and specifically when thinking about oracle decks, this one came to mind straight away, because the Wardens by Jessica Rue is just a fantastic deck. And you know, because it's a mass market deck and it's actually a very affordable price, people tend not to think about it, but it's actually really, really beautiful. It's very, very conducive of a lot of different types of works. Therefore, to me, the versatility of this deck comes from the fact that you can actually use it in many different ways, not just the fact that you can actually pair it up with a lot of other tarot decks. The guidebook is also very good. And what I really appreciate about this deck is that it's got that kind of artwork that it goes really well, for example, with the Oak, Ash and Thorn tarot, and many other tarot decks that are specifically based in nature. I'm thinking about the Forager's Daughter tarot, for example. So you've got an animal paired up with a plant or flower, as you can see here, but then you also have a keyword, which is very important. And I think I've said it many, many times, to me, I really enjoy when an oracle deck is giving you a keyword and not just the title. I mean, if in this case, if this card had been just a hound and a pair, I would have said, okay, well, I can see that. I mean, yes, it's a hound and yes, there's a couple of pairs there, but what is the meaning? What are you trying to convey as a message to me? And the fact that I don't have to necessarily go to the guidebook is very much appreciated, because then I can see the keyword is loyalty. And then immediately I form a connection, because of course I think about the hound and the fact that loyalty is one of the main features. So it's that kind of deck. And you know, as I said, apart from the fact it's got probably one of the most beautiful backs in an oracle, in a mass market oracle that I've got. And it's very affordable. The cardstock is very good. It's a bit papery, but that means that it fans out really well and it overhand shuffles really well. I've seen a lot of people trimming the borders off. I actually don't mind them. I am someone who does prefer the artwork to be prominent, so I don't necessarily enjoy the borders, but when they actually frame the artwork this way, I really appreciate them. So really, really enjoying this deck, the Woodland Wardens Oracle. So the next oracle deck that I want to show you today is the Flowers of the Night Oracle by Charlene Darcy. This deck has got a bit of a history, in the sense that I've actually had this deck before and I rehomed it, because at the beginning I didn't really think that it was gonna work. I thought that it was very simple and perhaps not as easy to pair up with other decks. However, when I got it the second time, I got it because I saw many other channels pairing it with a lot of tarot decks, and I realized that I wasn't using it the right way. Does it make sense? So I was basically focusing on perhaps decks that had a black background like this one. I thought that's the only way, that's the only aesthetics that will pair well with this one, but it actually really is versatile. And I really enjoy it. So it is the Flowers of the Night Oracle. Therefore, of course, the theme is very specific. We've got you know, a very specific time of the day. But what I enjoy about this deck, other than the fact that I can actually pair with other tarot decks as well, is the fact that the images are for sure conducive of that kind of specific darkness of the night, but the keywords are actually very open to any kind of interpretation. We got freedom, affinity, challenge, for example, compassion. And I think that it's very important for an oracle deck. I mean, there's not a lot that I actually ask or expect of an oracle deck, and this is definitely something that I do expect. So I do like when the keywords are very easy for me to just create a connection. And other than that, again, this is a mass market deck. It's very easy to find. It's a very affordable price. I really like the artwork. And so I actually enjoy using it a lot. And it has become one of my most versatile decks because it's become one of my most used decks. And again, it's been published by Rockpool. And I think after this, I don't know specifically what year this has been published, but after this, Rockpool has actually improved the quality of their decks. So this one is still one of those, as you can see, one of those decks that is very glossy, so it catches the light. Sometimes the cards do tend to stick together. But after this, they started, getting better quality. And I wish that either they reprinted this with a matte cardstock, or I wish I could find the indie edition. I've seen it around a couple of times, so I was too slow in trying and get it. But I think that it could be worth it because I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe that it does have a matte cardstock. So it would be interesting to see how this work with a matte cardstock. So this is the Flowers of the Night Oracle. And the Essential Oils Healing deck is becoming very quickly one of my most used and versatile decks. And the reason why I use it and I enjoy using it so much is because originally I bought this deck because I was looking for a deck that was dealing with essential oils, and there's a few. But this one, let's say that the aesthetics of this deck were very appealing to me. When it comes to the guidebook, it's very informative. I really, really like the way in which you can learn so many things about how to use essential oils. I like essential oils, but I must say that I'm very new to the different types of healing properties of these different oils. And so as a beginner, as a learner, I really enjoy the way in which this deck is structured. Well, first of all, it's got 52 cards, so obviously 52 different oils. I didn't even know there were that many. And you can find the English name, the Latin name, and then a bit of an explanation of what you can use this oil for. So for example, fennel encourages communication and self-expression. And then in here with the symbols, it shows you, for example, that you can use it in a diffuser, you can use it for massage, and you can also use it as a supplement. And one of the most enjoyable things about this deck in specific is the artwork. It's just absolutely superb. The colors are amazing. The painting, the way in which all the plants have been painted is really beautiful. So I really, really enjoy using it. It also is one of those, it's a glossy cardstock, but not too glossy, let's say, not the worst type of gloss that I've seen. And it's becoming one of my most versatile decks because I use it all the time. And I found that this deck pairs up really, really well with a lot of botanical tarot decks, but also with a lot of animal and nature in general themed decks, which it's a big part in my collection. I was actually thinking about doing a video showing just how many decks I have that are based on animal or plants in the natural world. But I think if I did that, it would be, if I include the tarot and oracle, it would be a very long video. So perhaps I will have to split it in two. But this deck is really, really beautiful. And it's also mass market. It's very easy to find at a very reasonable price. And if you don't know anything like I didn't about healing, the healing properties of essential oils, it's actually very, very informative. So that's becoming one of my most used decks. Another deck that is fairly recent in my collection, but it has quickly become one of my favorite ones, is the Sea Soul Journeys Oracle deck by Pippa Best. This deck is actually very, let's say, it's a photographic kind of deck. And what happened at the beginning was that I didn't get it as soon as I saw it, as soon as it was released, because I happened to watch a let's say, a feedback video about this deck, and the person giving the feedback was saying that, you know, it's a very, saying that it was almost a bit of a money grab kind of operation, in the sense that you only need a good camera and, you know, a poetic soul, and you can write down a couple of keywords and sentences and you have a deck. And admittedly, I thought to myself, well, I have a camera and I live by the ocean, so I can definitely take these kind of photos, and I can probably write down something like this. Being a writer, sometimes I do find myself having to be poetic and lyrical whenever I describe something. However, I have to say that I saw this used on Instagram. I saw it being paired up with other tarot decks, and I saw this used in a most versatile way, in which, you know, you can use it again in the popular way, as a focus between two tarot cards, but also at the end of a reading as a send-off message. I can use it on its own as a message for myself. What I actually really appreciate is the fact that not only, you know, the photos are actually really beautiful, but the keywords are very nice, and there's also the sentences, so you can stop at the keyword if you want. For example, I would definitely stop at the keyword whenever I'm reading it in combination with a tarot deck, but if I use it by itself, I actually really like to read the sentence. So with balance, you've got, may you find equilibrium in motion. And that's a really deep sentence. I really like it. It's conducive of intuition. I can actually use it for meditation, which I can't say for many decks that I've got. So when it comes to an oracle deck that you can use in so many different ways, I actually appreciate the effort in the preparation and the creation of this deck. Other than the fact that it actually is really beautiful. And unfortunately, I don't have the Flow Tarot, but I would love, if anyone has got the Flow Tarot, I would love them to get this deck and show if these two pair well together. I actually pair it with the Healing Waves Tarot because it's a marine themed deck and it pairs up really nicely. But I was really thinking, you know, perhaps with the Flow Tarot, because the Flow Tarot is also based on photographs, it would probably pair really well. But it's just a question. Let me know if you have these two decks. Let me know in the comments below. I would be very curious to hear what your experience is. And the last deck that I'm going to show you today for this deck is the Universal Folk Oracle by Annette in Rarity. Now, this deck has come to my collection exclusively, and I'm going to be honest, it's come to my collection exclusively because I thought it would pair well with the Jonasa Jaws Tarot, the 7th edition, but it has soon become one of my most used oracle decks because it's just absolutely gorgeous. I really love this deck. I love everything about it. It's called the Universal Folk Oracle. So at the beginning, I didn't really know how to, what kind of perspective I should have taken in order to use this deck, but I think that once you have it and once you start using it, this deck really speaks to you. So it combines a lot of floral elements and animal elements, and there's always a person in the cards, which is, you know, very beautiful. There's a lot of symbols as well. What I really enjoy is definitely the cardstock, the quality of the cardstock. It does remind me a little bit of the original US Games cardstock from the 80s. It's not 100% like that, but it's an improvement, let's say. I love the artwork. I love the fact that it's got a keyword and also, so it's a major keyword, let's say, and then it's got 2 or 3, 4, in some cases, other keywords that are related to that. So it's very, very versatile. You can really talk for hours whenever you pull even just one card. As a matter of fact, I don't think that in this, when you're using this deck, you shouldn't pull more than one card because it's got so much you can talk about. It's got so much that really gives you a lot to talk about in a reading, that pulling two would be already too much, or at least, you know, for me, I noticed. and it does pair really well with the Janasa. So in this case, for example, one of my favorite cards is the Warrior, and it's got, so the Warrior is the, let's say, the main keywords, but then you also have focus, assertiveness, rise, and action. So obviously they're all related to the concept and the archetype perhaps of warrior, but it's so beautiful to make connections, you know, find resonances and echoes between these words. And most of the time I notice that it's a very beautiful bridge between two tarot cards. The color palette is very particular. So I don't want to say it's muted, I don't want to say it's limited, but you don't have the full spectrum, the full, I think it's called the full gamut of the colors. But I actually really like that as well, because it happens to be a color palette that I actually like. So I really love this deck. It's become one of my favorite ones. So this is the Universal Folk Oracle. And this was the last deck that I wanted to show you today. So thank you so much for staying with me till the end of this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss on more content. Have a great day.